This man means business. Mike Eppel standing by. Morning, Mike.
Hey, morning, Kevin. We're starting the day with the Canadian dollar moving higher, and they're saying it is tied to the Trudeau and Trump meeting of yesterday, where the two gentlemen got together and sort of said all the right things and kind of calmed some nerves about a massive reorganization and renegotiation of the Canada and U.S. trade agreements under NAFTA. It appears that the Trump administration is, again, more focused on Mexico than they are about bilateral trade deals with Canada. So that was sort of breathing a sigh of relief for the Canadian business community yesterday. The spotlight now turns to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's visit to Europe, which happens later this week to coincide with the signing of the European Union-Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which was reached last fall. So some positives here, potentially for the Canadian economy. We're also seeing the U.S. dollar drop this morning on the resignation announcement last night of Security Advisor Michael Flynn in the Trump administration. So that is raising a little bit of concern about the U.S. dollar right now, which is down. So the Canadian dollar starting the day up to above 76 and almost 3/4 cents U.S., gaining a 1/4 cent. And it's one of the biggest movers, actually, that we're seeing in early market activity this morning. And price for oil up a little bit as well, which is also a positive signal potentially for our currency today. On this Valentine's Day, investors have a lot of love for the stock markets. We've had 3 records in a row for the Wall Street benchmarks. The TSX yesterday gained 27 points at another all-time high. Big Canadian banks all at records in anticipation of the upcoming quarterly earnings, which should be strong. And a lot of expectations that the banks will be raising guidance and profits and maybe even hiking dividends. So that's something to watch. The Dow yesterday was up 142 points with no specific news other than, again, the expectations of lower regulations in the banking industry and the energy sector. And a lot of the earnings have been very strong. So that's the positive foundation for U.S. stocks. We also saw Apple at a record in yesterday's trade and up again this morning above $133 per share. Puts the grand total market value of Apple north of $700 billion. It is the world's most highly capitalized company. And it's all based on the expectations on the iPhone 8 release later this year. Goldman Sachs putting a $150 12-month target on Apple shares. Could see a big deal in the works here in the European automotive industry, as General Motors is reportedly looking to sell its Opel and Vauxhall European car divisions, and they're in talks, at least on a preliminary basis, with Peugeot. Sources telling Bloomberg this morning that the companies are just in preliminary early-stage negotiations, could still fall apart, but you could see an amalgamation here of Peugeot with the GM Europe operations, and that would leapfrog Peugeot into second place overall for European market share, behind that of Volkswagen. So again, starting the day with a positive influence on the markets, could see more records for both Bay and Wall Streets. Back to the studio.
And all in all, a successful trip to Washington for Trudeau, and also a successful visit, American media saying, for the president himself.
Yeah, well, that's just the thing. You've got, again, optics about all of this. They look at handshakes and body language and sort of who triumphs over whom when it comes to the overall photo ops. So, you know, it was the first meeting, let's face it. There isn't the bromance here that Trudeau had with Barack Obama, but at the same time, a generally positive atmosphere. They had the meeting with women executives as well at the White House. So a lot of, again, signals that should lead to at least stable trade agreements, and that's that's one thing a lot of people were hoping to see out of this going forward. And again, we've got a positive market response so far this morning.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.